Okay, hi. We're going to continue here talking about basic reporting. And we're really not going to get as deep into this as I wish we could, but we're going to give you some basics of crime reporting. This is something that is very fundamental to reporting and journalism, and we need to talk about it at least a little bit. So we're going to get into some of the particulars of crime reporting. There you see the line innocent until proven guilty, which of course you have seen, but we need to take that very seriously in journalism and in media writing, because a person has been arrested does not mean he is guilty. And I think a lot of you probably have a very good appreciation of that. But a person has to be proven guilty in court. So it is best not to report the name of someone suspected of a crime until formal charges have been made. Now, in the media, because it is so competitive now, this sometimes is not observed, that a name is reported as soon as arrest has been made, but it is best to wait until the formal charges have been made if possible. If a person is charged with a crime, you should insert the word alleged or a similar word whenever you are describing any aspect of the crime which may be disputed in court. And alleged can be misused and can be badly used, but it is, if you use it correctly, it is one way of indicating that the person is charged with a crime, is accused of committing a crime. But as far as the legal system is concerned, has not committed the crime until that has been proven. This is because the defendant will probably argue that he did not do it, that it is simply an allegation. And so we'll get into the use of the word alleged. For example, James Green attacked retired carpenter Ahmed Shazi at his home on Mananga Street Wednesday. See any problem with that? Maybe James Green did do it, but at this point he is only charged with that. So better, James Green is alleged to have attacked retired carpenter Ahmed Shazi at his home on Mananga Street Wednesday. You could say is charged with attacking. You could say accused of attacking. There are other words beside alleged, but it's very important that we not say James Green attacked retired carpenter Ahmed Shazi. This will have to be proven in court. So here's a bit of a video, and I thank Wanda Cash, a professor at the University of Texas, for this.
Public safety, or the cops beat, as some of us lovingly refer to it. The cops beat has a little bit of everything: greed, violence, comedy, heroes, villains, scoundrels, victims, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Some humor too. If you haven't already signed up for the Campus Watch Daily Reports, do so. You're going to get great news story ideas, plus you'll get lots of laughs out of it. Why do we cover cops? Why do we cover firefighters, EMS, first responders? The basic principle is accountability. We cover law enforcement, public safety agencies, because we want to ensure they're doing their job of protecting us. Our job as journalists is to be responsible to the truth, not to glorify cops or firefighters or to gloss over their misdeeds or their errors. At the same time, it's vital that we maintain the very important balance between informing the people, the public, our audiences, and our professional obligation to prevent unnecessary harm to people.
I'm going to pause her there. Don't disagree with anything she said. I would add, however, you may want to know, as far as why we cover crime, if there have been a series of break-ins in your neighborhood, you may want to know about that, to be aware that your neighbors have experienced some break-ins to their homes, and that's a valuable thing to know. Also, there's just an interest level. It's most people will repeat if they know that God forbid there was a fatal traffic accident or a terrible fire or whatever. Thank goodness those are unusual things, but that is what makes news. And so there's an interest in the unusual things that happen, and so that's another reason why we report them. Be cautious in assigning blame in a car accident. Let's look at this story example here and notice how it's written, how it's put together. A basic thing in reporting is unfortunately we cover car accidents, and this is an example. So notice how this is written. A 16-year-old Springfield man was killed this morning when his car collided with an empty school bus at Thompson Lane and Lindbergh Avenue. There's a lot of things here that I could point out and that I would point out if I had more time. But I want to point this out to you. When his car collided with an empty school bus, the driver did not collide with it. His car collided with it. Why did his car collide with it? Well, that's one of those things, as I said the other day, we don't always know why. But his car collided with an empty school bus. So in essence, we are blaming the car for the mishap here. I believe if we read through here, I don't know if the police do describe what happened, but we are not saying that the driver collided with the bus, and the driver, of course, was in the car. But it's written so that the car collided with the bus. Now, another thing here, we say a 16-year-old Springfield man. Why do we do that rather than just starting with his name, Kevin L. Bowen, which shows up in the second sentence? The fact is, if we start a story, Kevin L. Bowen, most people will not know the young man. And so that name is not all that meaningful to them. But a 16-year-old Springfield man was killed is more meaningful. We understand here's a young man, a young teenage, most of us would say boy, but a youth who has been killed. And so we are more general, typically, in the way that we write the lead. But the main point here, his car collided with a bus. And then as I say, we get into this story further, we have information from the police report of exactly how this happened, but here's another thing I would point out to you. Police said attribution. We have talked about the importance of attribution. We don't write without attribution. The accident occurred as Bowen attempted to turn left from Thompson Lane onto Lindbergh Boulevard or Lindbergh Avenue. We weren't there. We didn't see it. The only way we know this is that we got this information from the police. So it's very important that we include the attribution there. Police said. That's how we know it. This is what they have told us. Okay, so the description of the accident comes from an official report from the police, and it's important that we indicate that by using attribution. Police said. Okay, again, I could spend more time on this, but I will move on. There's a very good article here I would suggest that you read. I'm not going to read it to you in the interest of time, but from the Columbia Journalism Review, a story about being careful of assigning blame. And it's not going to let me show this without jumping through some hoops. But okay, there we go. When covering car crashes, be careful not to blame the victim. So this is a slightly different point of view here from what I have presented to you so far, but I would suggest that you go ahead and read that article. It's a very helpful article. Again, attribution, so important. Only report as a fact what you know to be true, what you have witnessed. Basically, all the rest must be attributed. So what we are reporting with attribution, we are reporting what we have been told by what we believe to be an authoritative person, a person who should know, whom we have reason to think knows what happened, typically obtaining our information from a police report, an official source. But anything that you obtain from what you are told or what you read must be attributed. Who said so? Police believe or say the attacker used a large stick to beat Mr. Shazi several times before running off. This continuation of the story we were looking at a few moments ago. Police say the attacker, or police believe, And I worked with a man at Texas A&M named Doug Starr, who was perhaps the best journalism instructor I've ever known, who would definitely prefer say, because Doug would say, we don't know what they believe. You never know what someone believes, you know what they say. So Doug would much prefer the term say. But either way, we are attributing. We don't know that the attacker, we have no knowledge of that. The attacker used a large stick to beat Mr. Shazi, other than what we are told or what we read from a police report. There is no need to put police said throughout your story, but you should include the words whenever there is any doubt or possible dispute of the facts at all. We will get into broadcast writing at some point before too much longer, and attribution is used less frequently and less strictly in broadcast writing, but you're going to use the word said a lot in print style writing, and if you're writing about crime incidents, you're going to use the phrase police said a lot. Here's more from Wanda Cash at the University of Texas about crime reporting.
Greetings. Today we're is going to affect the community at large. Okay, so let's talk about nuts and bolts.
Sorry, I missed the exact place I wanted to start that. So.
Great opportunities for reporting. And that's what we call looking beyond the obvious, digging those rocks. If you want to be an effective reporter, you need to report on how these issues, these events, this controversy is going to affect the community at large. Okay, so let's talk about nuts and bolts. When you write a crime story, when you write a breaking news public safety story, think about it. Think about the organization of your story in a martini glass structure.
So what she's talking about here, she's describing a martini glass structure. Not sure how many of you are martini drinkers, but that looks a lot like the inverted pyramid, doesn't it? Same thing. So she's again bringing the old inverted pyramid up here by using another descriptive term, the martini glass structure. That's fine.
Where it's wide at the top, it narrows down to a stem, and then it comes back to the end in a wider paragraph. So start at the top with a summary news lead. In other words, who did what, when, and where did it happen? Then summarize the other key facts. When you've got that taken care of, then give us a chronology. Tell us when it happened, how it happened, when the train derailed, how many people were injured. Give us that list of how the event unfolded. And then come back to your conclusion and end it with a kicker. Go back to your lead, kick back to the lead, end it with a strong quote, give us a what's next paragraph.
You won't always have a kicker. A kicker is something that, I think of it as something that is amusing, surprising. You won't always have that, as she says, a surprise twist. A strong quote is certainly a good way to end a story. Quote from whomever it might be. That is a very good way to end the story. So this is a variation on the inverted pyramid. She has the stem there, which is a little bit different, but basically this is the inverted pyramid that I hope you're already familiar with. Official language. Avoid using police lingo. Use everyday language. The deceased struck his assailant a blow to the head before receiving a fatal stab wound to the chest. Nobody uses the term in normal conversation or writing, deceased, assailant. Also, the impossibility of a dead man, the deceased, hitting anyone was missed by the reporter. The deceased struck his assailant. Well, that's remarkable because he was deceased. So it should have been rewritten. The man hit his attacker on the head before being fatally stabbed in the chest. So rather than referring to the deceased, the man who was still alive hit his attacker rather than assailant on the head before being fatally stabbed in the chest. That's also a shorter sentence, so that's another reason why that's better. If no one has been arrested and charged, you can say much more, always bearing in mind that you could be sued for defamation by anyone involved if you do not stick to the truth. It is required to use someone's name to be guilty of defamation. We're getting into this area in a moment of libel. So you don't, the point of this statement here is if you're not dealing with names, you don't have to be quite as careful. You still should always be careful. You don't have to be quite as cautious and careful. But sometimes people can be identified without using their name. So we have to be careful even then, because as you know, if I tell enough about you without using your name, people can identify you and know who I'm talking about. Be careful of reporting names of persons involved in traffic accidents. We've already discussed that. In particular, be careful not to assign the blame for the accident. Of course, now, if a charge has been made, if someone has been charged with a crime in an accident, then that's another matter. Then you would say that he's charged with reckless driving, driving while intoxicated, failure to yield, whatever the charge might be. Then that's another matter. But again, even then, we're not saying that that person caused the accident. We're saying that the person is charged with the crime connected to the accident. Okay, there's a big distinction there. The car driven by Jones and the car driven by Smith collided. Again, I'm trying to sort of put the blame on the vehicles here. Some people might think this is silly, but there is a distinction. The car driven by Jones and the car driven by Smith collided, but the cars collided. Now again, if there is a charge filed in the accident, someone is charged with some form of reckless driving, then that can and should be reported, but you are reporting the charge, then in that case, and you're not reporting specifically who was guilty, but only that someone has been charged. With libel, we want to be accurate as a matter of professionalism. We just want to be accurate. However, reporters and news organizations may be sued for libel, and the definition of libel is a published or broadcast false statement that is damaging to a person's reputation. A false statement that is damaging to a person's reputation, a written defamation. So this is something that is published or broadcast. There's also something called slander, which can happen just in conversation. But we are concerned here with something that is primarily published, but it also might be broadcast. And published, by the way, also means on the internet. So if it appears on a web page or in a tweet or Facebook post or what have you, then that's also published. The plaintiff must prove a defamatory, damaging statement was made, so that the statement was damaging, first of all. Hurt the person's who is filing suit, hurt that person's reputation. A statement is a matter of fact and not opinion, so you can express opinion. For example, if we have someone is writing a review of a play or writing a review of a concert, the person writing can say, I think this play is terrible, and the actors in it are not good, or the musicians are not good musicians. That's opinion. And you are entitled to have an opinion. So you can state opinions, and sometimes that is very unpleasant and makes people very unhappy. And I think we should be respectful and cautious in even how we do that, but you are entitled to have an opinion. The statement is false, and that should say statement. So a defamatory, so let's not worry about opinion for the moment. A defamatory, damaging statement was made. The statement is false. So if you make a statement and it is an accurate statement, even though it is damaging, that's not libel. If you stated the truth, it's not libel. But the statement is false, that's another matter. But also, and this is maybe, I don't know if it's the most important thing, it's the most difficult thing in proving libel. It's why it is hard to win a libel suit. The statement was made with malice. It was done deliberately, knowingly, or recklessly, carelessly. So the statement was damaging, it was false, and it was made deliberately. or it was made recklessly. You should have known better. You, the reporter, the writer, should have known better. You were careless. And that sometimes, and not sometimes, very often, most of the time, is hard to prove. But if you are working for an organization and you cause that organization to be sued for libel, even if ultimately the case is one, you've cost them a lot of money and a lot of trouble to have to defend, to go to court. Even if it doesn't make it to court, legal proceedings have to be handled. That's expensive. So you're not doing your employer any favor by drawing a libel suit upon yourself or the organization, even if the libel suit ultimately is not successful. In the U.S., public figures have less protection against libel than ordinary citizens. The reason for that is that the courts want there to be a free press, freedom of the press under the First Amendment. And so if you say something that is potentially libelous against the President of the United States, a governor, a congressperson, a senator, even a movie star, rock star, athlete, those people have less protection because they have put themselves in the public eye. They have chosen to live a public life, and so therefore it's thought that they should expect less protection. They have to understand that they are going to be commented upon. It's part of being a public figure. Even if you win in court, defending against a libel suit is costly, and libel is a criminal offense in 17 states, which means you could go to jail potentially for it. That is not true in Texas. There's a video here that if we were in a classroom, I'm sure I would show you. There's also an article. You can look at those on your own if you'd like a better understanding of libel. But I think I will leave it at that, and I hope this is helpful in your understanding of writing on and reporting on crime. Thanks.